So you want to learn the biblical languages, but you aren't sure where to start, Greek or Hebrew. In this video, I will help you answer that question. When you're starting out, you'll encounter sentences like this, ho anthropos krasde, or at least you should encounter sentences like this. This is an easy Greek sentence, and this is an easy Hebrew sentence, ha'adam zoek. You can already see in Greek, there are some similarities with English that you don't necessarily get in Hebrew. First of all, Greek is written left to right. Hebrew is way over here because it's right to left, okay? So already that is going to favor starting with Greek first, at least to get started. Secondly, there are cognate words. What does that mean? In Greek, you're going to encounter more Greek words that are like English words. So anthropos is similar to anthropology, right? So this Greek word actually is where we get the word anthropology from, the study of humans, right, or cultures. So that will help you remember that this Greek word means human. Ho anthropos krasde, human or man cries out. You don't get that as much in Hebrew. Ha'adam zoek. Adam is, the word for person. It is also, the name of Adam. But most of the time, in terms of learning vocabulary quickly in the beginning, Greek is going to be a little bit easier. Another thing is that the writing system in Greek is much closer to the writing system in English than Hebrew is. Okay, so you can kind of like guess some of these. This is a, right? Alpha. Some of these are a little bit harder. This looks like a V, sounds like an N. This is a theta, right? Rho. But this is O. This is a P, O, S. Okay? This is a K, right? That's really easy. Krasde. Okay? O anthropos krasde. So learning these letters, there's going to be some that are going to be like, okay, I don't know what sound that makes. But others of them, you could guess and you're probably going to get it right. Whereas if you look at Hebrew, it's going to be very hard to guess, if not impossible, to guess any of these letters correctly, just purely guessing. So all that to say, if you're just starting out and you need, some quick wins, Greek is probably easier. Now, those are just kind of like, example sentences, very easy. And I do think it is easier, at least in terms of the on-ramp, to get into Greek. But with the real languages, they each have their own complexities. So here's normal Greek, right? In Galatians 2:6, prosopon theos anthropou ou lambane. So there are some things in the sentence that make this hard. This word theos is the subject, okay? Theos ou lambane does not take. We'll just gloss that as take for now. So theos ou lambane, okay? The object is prosopon, and anthropou of man, or of a person, goes with prosopon. This syntax is pretty complicated. You have, this is the object, this is the subject, and then this is a modifier of the object, and then this is the verb, okay? So that can get confusing, but this is just what Greek does. Greek does this quite a bit, okay? It's not to say that this word order in Greek is haphazard, right? Some people will say that, Greek just does whatever it wants with word order. That is absolutely not true. These words are ordered in a particular way by the author to communicate a certain meaning, okay? So that's really important to know, but you can see that the syntax of Greek is can be pretty complex. On the other hand, this is normal Hebrew. Exodus 3:10. Ve'ata lecha ve'eshla'acha. So this word, ve'eshla'acha, right? El paro ve'hotze et ami v'nei Israel. This word that I stopped on is really three, kind of like it's three words in English. And I will send you. And I will send you. 5 words in English. Can't even count. All in one word. Okay. So that comes with its own difficulties, right? There are morphological complexities in Hebrew that are probably a little bit harder than in Greek. At the same time, Hebrew probably is not as hard syntactically as Greek. You don't have as much movement like this. In Greek, it can just be, you can have all kinds of things. In Hebrew, and I will send you to Pharaoh, and he will make my people go out, the sons of Israel. Okay, so it's like pretty linear. Oh, me means Chaim, from Egypt. Okay, pretty linear in terms of how the syntax would map onto English, even though it's going right to left. Okay, again, it's not. I'm certainly not saying that Hebrew syntax is the same as English, but you don't seem to have quite the level of complexity as you do in Greek syntax. So in that respect, if you're getting into the real languages, there are things about Hebrew that are maybe more difficult. The fact that you can put 5 words into 1 word. And there are things about Greek that might be a little bit more difficult, namely the syntax and the word order. Okay, now let's get into some hard parts of these languages. So here is harder Greek. Acts 27 is often considered to be, one of the harder passages in the New Testament. Honestly, I am not going to read the whole thing to you, but there are several words in here that are, not found very often. You can see that this sentence is quite long. In fact, it is so long, and we did so well at preparing for this video that it extends past the slide itself. So some of these sentences in Greek can get very long. And what happens when the syntax is also complex is that it's hard to hold all of that in your head. Okay, you got to be quite good, quite fluent to remember this word in the beginning when you get to the end. And you do need to, because it's all one sentence. So there are hard parts of Greek, and this I will say, this is harder Greek, Acts 27. But really, if you want hard Greek, you would go to really places outside of the New Testament. Philo is much, much harder Greek, as an example of one that's still in the Koine realm, but it's just harder. It's much more classical, harder in many ways. So this is an important point about the Greek of the New Testament in general, is it's actually not that difficult if you compare it to other kinds of Greek that we see outside of the New Testament. Especially if we think about, John, for example. John is easy Greek. Everyone knows John is easy Greek, okay? So there are parts of the New Testament that you will be able to read quite quickly. If you persevere just a little bit, you'll be able to get into John. Now, there are hard parts of Hebrew. Honestly, the hard parts of Hebrew, I will say, are harder than the hard parts of Greek, for sure. This is Genesis 49:10. This is a ancient poem, very famous verse. Talking about Shiloh or Shiloh here. And there are words in here that are only found one time in the Hebrew Bible. It's very hard to know what those words mean because they're only found one time. Like this word, for example, yikhat. We don't really know what that means, okay? Of course, in your translations, they have to do something with it. It's usually translated the obedience of the nations. Could be. It's hard to know. It's hard to know because we just don't have a lot of data on that word, okay? So I will say this. There are certain parts of Hebrew, especially Job. Job is notoriously very, very difficult. Poems like Genesis 49, Exodus 15, Judges 5, these are archaic poems. There's other poems, right? Obviously the Psalms, Proverbs can get pretty dicey at times. These different genres make the Hebrew of the Old Testament, in general, harder than the Greek of the New Testament. In the Greek of the New Testament, you got a lot of narratives, letters, right? Even letters are easier to understand than poetry, for example, even if the syntax sometimes does get complicated, okay? So all that to say, where do you start? Do you start with Greek or do you start with Hebrew? I will say, if you are interested in a quick win, Greek is the better route to go. You will get into John and be able to understand John much faster than you'll be able to understand parts of the Hebrew Bible, okay? But with the Hebrew Bible, you get 2/3 of the Bible. So obviously, if you want to prioritize the harder one and the one for which you will get to read more texts, Hebrew is the way to go. But just know that your on-ramp will be a little bit more challenging. But in the end, you will be able to certainly read narratives and things like that. And there's going to be parts, like in Job, like in Genesis 49:10, which you might not ever understand. That's just okay. No one understands them. That's all right. Okay, so that is some thoughts on what to choose, Greek or Hebrew. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button so that more and more people can see it. Thanks.